Have you ever been fined just for holding a fishing rod on your own land? I have. And when HOA Karen proudly declared that I was violating fishing regulations, she had no idea that, legally speaking, that lake had never belonged to them. So what did I do? I bought the entire lake. Then I put up a sign, "Residents not welcome. Trespassers will be prosecuted." This isn't just about fishing. This is the story of a legal slap so hard the entire HOA shamefully retreated to their golf cart parking lot. Sunday morning. The lake behind my cabin was calm. A mug of black coffee sat beside my old folding chair. The breeze danced lightly on the water. Birds called from the far shore. It was so peaceful, I almost forgot I lived in a neighborhood governed by a self-appointed HOA. I had just cast my line when I heard the buzz. A golf cart emerged from behind the trees, kicking up dust. On it were 3 people dressed like they were filming a toilet bowl cleaner commercial, clipboards in hand, sunglasses on, faces as serious as if they were about to bust a drug lab. In the middle sat a sun-fried blonde woman, her face caked in pink makeup like a cement wall, Brenda McCall, a true Karen who once screamed at kids for riding scooters too fast. Flanking her were 2 cronies, a bald guy in slide sandals with white socks named Melvin, and a busybody named Cheryl who once sued over a wind chime for noise pollution. They stepped off the cart like 3 FBI agents, staring at me as if I were operating a mobile meth lab at the dock behind my house. "Sir, you are in violation of HOA Regulation 7B.5. Unauthorized fishing," Brenda declared, holding up a blinding yellow plastic sign like she had just seized a murder weapon. I almost dropped my fishing rod from laughing. I repeated, "7B5? Melvin nodded solemnly, like he was quoting constitutional law. "Without a valid HOA fishing permit, you are trespassing on shared community property." I looked around. "What community?" Cheryl pointed at the lake. "That lake is common property." I had to stop, to laugh, not a polite chuckle. A full-belly, shoulder-shaking, tear-streaming laugh. Brenda wasn't amused. She slapped a citation onto my chest like she was tagging a bootleg car, $700 violation. Repeat offenses will be escalated to legal action. I folded up my chair and stood slowly. "Do you even know how long I've lived here?" Brenda lifted her chin. "Doesn't matter. I've been fishing in this lake behind my house for over 10 years, since before you were busy banning the neighbor's cat from pooping in the wrong yard." She cut me off with her screechy voice. "The lake is under HOA jurisdiction, and our rules apply across the entire neighborhood." That afternoon, I got home to find an orange warning notice taped to my door. The content? Threats of increased fines, legal escalation, and suspension of community privileges. Like I was some kind of fugitive on the FBI's most wanted list. I stood there, stared at the paper for a while, then crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. I wasn't angry yet, but I was starting to get curious. The next morning, I walked along the lake, hot coffee in hand. New signs had popped up everywhere. No fishing. Violators will be fined. One was posted right next to my dock, another nailed to a tree where I usually tied my canoe. I tilted my head back and took a long breath. The coffee still smelled great, but that bitterness, it was coming from somewhere else now. I set the mug on the porch table, walked inside, and picked up the phone to call. My lawyer. His name is Barry, a college buddy. He'd helped me handle some business transfer paperwork in the past. I called and said just one sentence. "I need you to find out who actually owns the lake behind my house." Barry was silent. For a few seconds, then asked, "Are you planning to sue?" I chuckled. "No, I'm planning to buy the damn lake." 3 days after the call with Barry, I was cleaning my fishing rod when the phone rang. "I've got news," Barry said, voice as calm as always, but I could hear the smug grin behind it. "You're going to like this." I sat up straight. "Talk to me." Turns out the lake, the very one Brenda and the HOA loudly claimed was community property managed by the HOA, wasn't actually owned by anyone. Back in 1993, a development company named Clearwater Development had leased the lake on a 30-year contract for a potential project, but never followed through with a purchase. No one ever re-registered the property. The parent company had been dissolved. In short, the lake still had no legal owner on record, and legally, it was first come, first served. I got in touch with the Clearwater heirs, Barry continued, an elderly couple down in Florida. They thought it was just some useless pond, I chuckled. And if I want to buy it, all you need to do is sign. I've already drafted the offer. A few days later, I signed. And when I say signed, I mean the entire HOA power structure just flipped upside down with a single mouse click. Brenda still patrolled the lake in her golf cart, glaring at me from a distance with that "I'll catch you fishing again" criminal look in her eyes. Me? I just sipped my coffee and waved. We kept everything completely quiet. Barry called it a silent surgical strike. I called it the art of revenge by deed title. 1 week later, the paperwork was finalized. I held a copy of the land ownership certificate, reading line by line like it was the final movement of a Mozart symphony. Only this one had a notary seal and a big red stamp that read, "Finalized, the lake, the dock, and the 10 feet of land around it," where the HOA had placed "no fishing" signs, built a kayak rack, and wielded their so-called power. Now belonged to me. No lease, no temporary management, no shared ownership. Official, private, all-inclusive. I walked out onto the dock, the same one where Brenda once posted her "no fishing" sign, leaned my rod against the planks, and looked down at the sunlight rippling on the water. I smiled, the smile of a man who just bought an entire lake. Just to spite people who thought they were royalty, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need to. I let them keep playing their little game. Let the HOA believe they still had control. Let Brenda keep holding her emergency meetings about lake access rules, wearing a smug face like she'd just passed federal legislation. I even attended an HOA meeting once. Brenda proudly announced, "From now on, all kayaks must be inspection stickered, swimsuits must meet approved guidelines, and no one may fish except Saturdays from 9 to 11 a.m. I nearly choked on the free punch. That night, Barry texted, "Sending official filings to the land registry first thing tomorrow. Get ready." I replied, "Signs are already ordered." Yes, signs. Not those flimsy yellow plastic things the HOA tapes up with cheap masking tape. I had 12 solid wooden signs custom-made, hand-carved, with white raised lettering on dark walnut-stained planks. They read, "Private property. Residents. Not welcome. Trespassers will be prosecuted." I hired a local crew from the next town over, well outside HOA reach, to install them at 6 a.m. By 8 a.m., the neighborhood group chat exploded. Photos of the signs, angry comments, people tagging Brenda. Utter chaos. Me? I sat on the porch, hot coffee in hand, feet up on the chair, watching the drama unfold like the morning news. By 9 a.m., I heard the familiar rumble of a golf cart moving at rage speed. Brenda came barreling down to the dock, shrieking, "What is this? Who authorized these signs? He doesn't own the lake." I walked down, land deed folder in hand. Brenda turned to me, finger outstretched. "Dean, you can't—" I opened the folder and held it up to her face. "Official seal, signature, stamped and filed. I don't have to can." I did. "This is my lake, my land, my signs, and you are standing on private property." She was speechless. Her eyes went wide like I had just recited the Declaration of Independence in front of her. Then she stammered, "But we've been using this lake for years." I shrugged. "Using and owning are two different things. And your HOA just made a big mistake. I thought that after I showed Brenda the land deed, she would come to her senses. I was wrong. She didn't back down. She didn't apologize. She didn't admit fault. She, true to her Karen nature, turned around, marched back to the HOA hall, and declared war. That night, I got word from a neutral neighbor named Hank, the kind of guy who always wears New Balance sneakers and has a not my business but I know everything attitude. Hank said, Brenda held an emergency meeting, declared, we're under invasion. Her exact words, invasion. All because I refused to put a sticker on my fishing rod, Brenda launched a full-blown campaign, Take Back Our Lake. Flyers showed up on every community board, residents robbed of recreational rights, outsiders stealing community property, boycott the trader's fish pond, and the legendary highlight, our village has lost its identity because of one selfish man. I didn't respond. I didn't speak out. I didn't need to do anything, because Brenda was imploding on her own, and when lies spread, the truth only needs one good counterpunch. I had 200 flyers printed. On the front, a still frame from my security camera, Rick, Brenda's loyal lackey, sneaking onto my dock, hoodie up, slicing the rope of my boat like some backyard saboteur. On the back, a single line of text. Private property means private. Rules. Respect the line or pay the fine. I walked the whole neighborhood, flyer by flyer, house by house, mailbox by mailbox. I didn't skip a single one. The next day, the neighborhood chat group exploded. Again, people started asking questions. Brenda says the lake belongs to the HOA, but Dean has the deed? Did Rick really get caught on camera? If they lied about the lake, what else has the HOA been making up? Brenda, like a sinking ship, began flailing. She proposed a board meeting to pass a resolution to reclaim the lake. This time, no support, not a single vote. Not even a nod. And then, the final blow. Mr. Phelps, the oldest resident in the neighborhood, fishing hat on, known for casting lines every morning, slowly stood and said, Brenda, you told us the lake belonged to the HOA. You said Dean was breaking the rules. Turns out you were wrong. And now the lake is truly off limits. We lost our whole summer because of you. The room went silent. Brenda gripped her little wooden gavel, hands trembling. She was no longer HOA president, just a woman with a clipboard and a shattered ego. That night, I was wiping down my fishing reel when there was a knock at it was Marcia, a former HOA board member, one who had sided with Brenda but had never been hostile to me. In her hand was a blue frosted cupcake. Congratulations, she said, and Brenda resigned. I took the cupcake, closed the door, and stepped out onto the porch. Sitting there, gazing at the moonlit lake, I thought, peace isn't something you beg for, it's something you take back when you know what's right and you don't back down. But I also knew one thing for sure. Brenda wasn't done. I've worked in business. I've dealt with people who had money and power. I know Brenda's type. When they lose control, they don't walk away. They crawl into the shadows and wait. And so I was already preparing my next move. I didn't just want to keep the lake. I wanted to turn it into something the HOA could never take back. Not with laws, not with votes, not with threats. I was turning it into a business. They thought all I wanted was to fish and stay quiet. They thought I bought the lake just to sit there alone and silently win. Wrong. Dead wrong, because I didn't just want them to disappear. I wanted them erased from the map. Forever. 3 days after Brenda resigned, I launched Phase 2, Redefining the Lake. I called Barry, by now no longer just my corporate attorney, but more like Secretary of the Interior for the Republic of Petty Revenge Waters. Are you sure about this? Barry asked. I'm not just sure, I said. I'm dreaming about the HOA needing my permission to rinse off their kayaks. I filed the paperwork to register a business. Company name, Lake Liberty LLC. The name sounded both like a greeting and a slap across the face of anyone who ever tried to control me. I hired Vince, a local contractor and former Marine, to build a small lodge by the lake, a 2-room cabin with a wooden porch and rocking chairs overlooking the water. Nothing fancy, nothing modern, just enough to be called a member welcome station. Next to it, I installed a gated entrance, a proper fence, and even nicer signage. Of course, the sign clearly read, Lake Liberty Private Club, HOA residents prohibited by policy. I knew that line would make Brenda boil, and that was the point. In the first week, I launched a website, clean layout, photos of the lake, membership registration system, clear pricing, standard membership, $200 a year discounts for veterans, teachers, and seniors free fishing for local firefighters and police. I had no intention of turning this into some luxury resort. I just wanted to create a principled paradise, one that no HOA could ever be worthy of entering. Within a week, over 50 applications poured in. People from nearby neighborhoods, people who'd been fined by their HOAs for planting the wrong flowers or placing lawn chairs at the wrong angle. One guy wrote, "Got fined by my HOA because my flag was tilted 3 degrees. I want to fish, even though I don't know how to hold a rod." The lake wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a symbol, and just as I predicted, Karen Brenda McCall made her comeback. One sweltering afternoon, I was organizing tackle hooks in the lodge when I heard a voice, sharp as a lemon and twice as sour, spiked the decibel meter. "This is a public insult." I stepped outside. Brenda, holding a neon-colored water bottle, was standing at the gate. Next to her were my 2 newly hired staffers, Hal, a former Navy man, and Mia, a 3rd-year law student, both standing tall and still. Their faces said one thing. "Say, one more word and we're calling the cops." "What's the issue, Brenda?" I asked, politely enough to win an award. She shrieked, "You have no right to ban residents from using the lake. This is discrimination." I pointed at the sign. "Private property, private club, just like your HOA swimming pool, remember? You once denied me access because I wasn't in the right dress code. Well, now it's my turn to enforce some wardrobe law." Brenda fumed. "I'm going to sue you." I held up a copy of the club's policy statement. Legal, filed, approved. "Would you like me to read you the statute on trespassing?" Brenda looked at me like she wanted to vaporize me with her gaze. But legal documents beat death stares. Every time, she spun around stomping on a brochure on her way out. I watched her go, half mourning the paper, half basking in satisfaction. That evening, the new HOA president, Leonard, quietly came to the lake. No golf cart, no clipboard, just walking, empty-handed, nodding politely as he passed through. "The gate." "Dean," he said, "I'm sorry for everything that happened. We got pulled into the wrong fight." I shook his hand. "It's in the past. All I want now is to fish, but I'm not taking the sign down." Leonard nodded. "If it were me, I wouldn't either. I thought that after the knockout punch called Lake Liberty, no HOA allowed, things would finally calm down. Part of me hoped Brenda would accept reality, retire peacefully among her lavender bushes, and tape birthday cards to her front, gait like a normal senior. But no. She chose the worst possible path. Sabotage. It started like a hairline crack in a foundation. One morning, I walked out to the dock and found the canoe rope cut clean through. The boat hadn't drifted away. Thank God for the backup tether. But someone was clearly sending a message. I didn't react. Just took notes. Installed a night vision security camera, motion-activated infrared, synced to my phone. The next week, someone threw rotten eggs onto the welcome mat at my front door. The smell was so bad I had to throw the shoes out. Then one day, I opened the boat's gas tank and smelled sugar. Someone had poured sugar into the fuel tank. If you know anything about engines, you'll know. That's a death sentence. It took me 3 days and a few $100 to flush the system, replace filters, and check the valves. That time, I didn't stay silent. I sat down, poured a strong black coffee, and texted Barry. The saboteur made a move. I've got footage. Time for retaliation. That night, exactly 2:43 a.m., my camera sent a real-time notification to my phone. Rick, the flip-flop uncle, Brenda's right-hand man. He was wearing a hoodie, flashlight in one hand, and bolt cutters in the other, sneaking into the boathouse. I tapped alarm. A piercing, industrial-grade siren blasted through the night. Rick jumped like he'd seen a ghost, stumbled over the rocks, then bolted like lightning. I didn't chase him. I simply sent the video to the county sheriff's office, along with a note. Deliberate vandalism. Video evidence attached. The next day, Rick received a court summons. Charges: trespassing and destruction of private property. The HOA tried to cover for him. Brenda posted in the neighborhood group chat. Rick was just checking for storm damage. I, on the other hand, printed 50 still frames from the footage, each with the same caption. Private property means private rules. Respect the line or pay the fine. I hand-delivered them to every mailbox in the neighborhood. No extra words. Just Rick, hoodie on, crouching in the dark with bolt cutters, speaking volumes. The neighborhood lit up. People no longer asked, "Does Dean really own the lake?" They asked, "What else has Brenda lied about?" Did Rick really vandalize someone's property? If they lied about the lake and sabotage, what else are they hiding? Brenda realized she was losing control, and like any dictator on the verge of losing her throne, she played her final card, the march to take back the lake. Saturday morning, Brenda led a peaceful protest of about 12 people, mostly former book club members, one guy named Carl who measured grass height for fun, and 3 old ladies who loved dogs but hated literally everything else. They held signs like, "Water for all, no oppression by the shore, end." Lakeside tyranny. They marched to the lake and were met by 2 deputy sheriffs standing next to a sign that read, "Lake Liberty, private area, no trespassing." I wasn't even there. I was at the bait shop picking up more hooks and a picture frame for the lake deed. But someone snapped a photo of Brenda being turned away from the very lake she used to rule. The image went viral on the Nextdoor app. More comments than the award-winning bakery got last month. That night, Brenda held an emergency all-resident HOA meeting proposing to sue me. Charge: illegally occupying community property. She sounded like she was delivering a speech at the United Nations, but no one supported the motion. No one seconded it. The room was dead silent. Then Mr. Phelps, the senior fishing legend, stood up and looked her straight in the eye. "Brenda, you lied to us about the lake. You dragged us into the wrong fight. Now you're the reason we can't use the place we once loved. I think it's time someone else led this neighborhood." Brenda was speechless. For the first time since I moved in, she didn't argue back. I sat on the front porch of the lodge, coffee in hand, watching the lake shimmer under the morning sun. Just a month ago, I was being chased off from the very spot I used to cast my line. Now I was preparing to launch the grand opening of the region's first private lake club, where the HOA wasn't just uninvited, it was banned. And honestly, I had never seen justice served this perfectly. Brenda officially resigned. She abandoned the HOA like a rotting ship in a hurricane. Her replacement was Leonard, a practical, bald-headed man who knew when to speak and when to shut up. Leonard came to me, extended a hand. "I want peace, Dean, and I think the rest of the neighborhood does too." I nodded. "I'm not out for revenge, but rules are rules." What if, just one day a year, we held an event by the lake? Fully managed, by request only? I considered it. Maybe, but no HOA involvement. Residents only. One day. No flags, no clipboards, Leonard smiled. Fair enough. So I began expanding Lake Liberty. I didn't just want it to be a symbolic slap in the face. I wanted it to become a model, something people could point to and say, that's what an HOA could never create. I hired Vince, the veteran contractor, to help me build a redwood pavilion with rocking chairs overlooking the water eye. Small cabin selling bait, t-shirts, and day passes, a brand new dock with solar lights, a wooden rail, and an American flag flying proud. I called it Lake Liberty, a private club without the tyranny. The rules were posted clearly at the gate. Respect nature. Respect people. The HOA was here. Now it's not. The website went live. Registrations flooded in. I got emails from retired police officers hoping to teach kids how to fish, families from nearby neighborhoods, sick of getting fined for planting unapproved shrubs. A travel blogger asking to film a review titled The Best Anti-HOA Spot in America. One young couple even drove over just to take photos with the sign that read, "Residents Not Welcome." But what I loved most wasn't the fame. It was the new community forming around this lake. I hired a few local college students to work shifts, guiding kayak renters, selling day passes. I offered free memberships to veterans, firefighters, and nurses, discounts for teachers and seniors. On July 4th, I hosted Freedom Fest BBQ by the lake kayak races around the island in the center. A local country rock band playing on a makeshift stage. Over 300 people showed up. We raised $2,000 for a veteran support organization. The local news ran a headline, "Man turns HOA feud into lakeside freedom paradise." Brenda was probably throwing her TV remote across the room. I knew because a few days later I saw her standing at the edge of the woods, staring through the fence. Same old neon water bottle in hand. That look in her eyes, equal parts envy and helplessness. She was no longer the HOA president, just someone crossed off the map of a place she once thought she ruled. That night, I walked down to the dock and fished with Mr. Phelps, the first man to speak out against Brenda. "Dean," he said, sipping his beer, "you didn't just win back the lake." I looked at him. "You reclaimed something we'd all forgotten. Private property isn't a political pawn?" I smiled, gently tugging the fishing line. "Pretty good HOA lesson, huh?" "Better than the book I'm reading," he replied. Brenda vanished from Lake Liberty like she was never there. But if you thought she'd surrender that easily, then you've seriously underestimated the petty wrath of a former HOA president, stripped of power, meetings, and anyone willing to listen. Brenda turned to Facebook. The campaign? Our Lake. Stand against the usurper. Her profile picture, an old photo of Lake Liberty from 2003 with a caption, "Remember the good old days? Now we're banned from property that was once ours." She posted 3 times a day. Morning, moral quotes. Afternoon, moody lake photos with heavy filters. Evening, dramatic rants about the collapse of community values. She even launched hashtags, "Take back the lake," "Say no to Dean," "This is not freedom." I nearly choked on my coffee reading. Then Brenda rallied a few former HOA members, folks she had once fined for planting off-color flowers under her own rules. Now they paraded around as political victims. One woman wrote, "I used to host birthday picnics at the lake. Now I'm banned. This is discrimination." Someone replied, "You banned kids from riding bikes by the lake because it shook the soil. Don't play the victim now." The louder Brenda yelled, the more she got exposed. One neighbor posted a copy of the 2022 HOA invoice, listing $9,800 in lake maintenance fees, even though the HOA had never owned the lake. Someone else shared a public link to the official property deed in my name. The Facebook group started turning on her. From "Ratch, take back the lake" to "maybe we were wrong." From "he stole the lake" to "wait, did Brenda hide the truth about the lake?" But Brenda wasn't done. She printed flyers, taped them to gates, hand-wrote letters. One day, I opened the mailbox and found a hand-addressed envelope. To preserve our community values, let's reclaim our right to enjoy the lake. At the bottom, we are collecting signatures to sue Dean. I smiled and wrote back, good luck. Section 14 of our state's private property code allows me to bar residents from my fenced, legally posted land. Signing this petition is like headbutting concrete. I dropped it right back in the mailbox, returned to the sender. The final blow came from the community itself. A week later, I was invited to speak at a community coffee event, a small gathering in the park, hosted by residents unaffiliated with the HOA. I stood up and kept it short. I didn't start this conflict, I was just fishing. And when I was threatened, I defended my rights. Now I'm sharing this place with anyone who respects the law, nature, and each other. The entire park applauded. That same night, Brenda was booted from the Facebook group. The admin wrote, "Divisive content, misinformation. Please argue," with facts, not clipboards. As for Rick, he made a comeback nobody asked for. He showed up at Lake Liberty's gate with a handwritten sign, "Remove the HOA residents not welcome sign." I walked out, club rules in hand. "Rick, you're allowed not to like it. But this is my land, my rules. If you want to fish, move your address. If not, here's my suggestion. Find another lake and learn how to lose with dignity." Rick backed off. His sign blew into a ditch with the wind. I didn't pick it up. That night, Leonard texted, "Dean, Brenda has officially withdrawn from all community activity. I think the storm has passed." I replied, "I didn't win because I had money. I won because I had patience, and they were too arrogant to read legal documents." Lake Liberty was peaceful again. But I didn't forget. I had one final move left, to make sure the HOA never rose again. After the Facebook campaign failed, the protests fizzled out, and flyers were torn down by the residents themselves. The HOA thought it was over, but not for me. I knew they'd come back, maybe under a new name, a new board, but always the same clipboards and control freak mentality, so I decided I wouldn't just lock the door. I'd build a fortress. Step 1. Establish the Lake Liberty Preservation Trust Barry, and I created a nonprofit, Lake Liberty Stewardship Trust. Its mission: conserve the lake, regulate its use, prevent any commercial or HOA entity from ever owning, accessing, or manipulating the lake again. I transferred the lake's ownership to the trust while retaining lifetime executive control. A legal safeguard, as solid as concrete poured under the waterline. I wrote the bylaws myself. The very first line reads, "No HOA, residential board, or local representative shall have authority over lake policy, in perpetuity." Step 2. Lake Liberty Private Members Club. Expansion phase activated. I hired more staff. The lodge expanded into 3 functional zones: a family-only camping area, a water sports arena, quiet fishing zone under a redwood canopy. The lake wasn't just something the HOA envied anymore. It had become a regional icon, featured on travel blogs, suburban living magazines, even a YouTube channel dedicated to personal liberty. Even the local news aired a special segment. From fishing to freedom, the man who defied an HOA and built a lakeside paradise. Brenda's probably smashed her remote for the 43rd time. Step 3. The final sign. Before summer ended, I installed one last sign, right where the HOA used to gather, pointing, fining, and issuing orders. It was carved into solid oak, etched deep. Lake Liberty, no HOA, no fines, no abuse of power, only clear rules and mutual respect. Below that, a quote from old Mr. Phelps, the beloved neighborhood fisherman. "If you want a real community, don't start with threats. Start with a fishing rod and a decent cup of coffee." Epilogue. The quietest slap still stings the oh. Most Brenda moved out. Word is she settled across the hill in a new development, where the HOA was seeking help coordinating summer activities. I wish them luck. Honestly, they'll need it. One sunset evening, as I was wiping down my fishing rod, a kid pedaled past the gate, paused to read the Lake Liberty sign, and asked, "Mister, is it true you fought the whole neighborhood just to go fishing?" I smiled. No, I didn't fight for fishing. I fought for the right to be left alone while I fished. The kid nodded. That's awesome. He pedaled off, tires crunching softly on gravel, no clipboards chasing behind. I sat down, cast my line into the still water. No sirens, no warning signs, no shrill voices yelling, "Violation of Clause 12B!" Just me, the lake, and the peace I'd reclaimed through logic, law, and a bit of righteous spite. They once thought that lake was the heart of the community. Now it's the center of a hard-earned lesson. You can't use made-up rules to take what doesn't belong to you. Didn't buy the lake for revenge. I bought it to teach them that freedom, like ownership, isn't something an HOA can scribble into a violation notice. The lake is still there. The fishing rod still hangs on the wooden hook, and the "No HOA Allowed" sign, double-coated. In varnish, UV-resistant and tamper-proof. Thanks for reading, and remember, if an HOA wants to make rules on your land, buy the whole damn map.